Well, today I am so excited to be talking with Laura Katleman, who is the founder of VHU Foods. She's a vegan. She's got amazing things going on in the world, and she's on a mission. She's on a mission to get people healthy through the snacks they eat, and is very into fitness and a lot of things going on. So with that, Laura, great to have you on the show.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and delighted that you wanted to have me on.
Absolutely. Well, I'm always intrigued when somebody's running a successful business, and I love to learn the backstory because I work with entrepreneurs and I work primarily now in the vegan space. And it always intrigues me. What did it take for you to get the idea for your business? What were your hurdles? What were your victories? And where are you going with it? So let's start with, first of all, when did you become vegan?
I haven't been vegan for very long, maybe a year, something like that. But I've been vegetarian for a very long time. I've been vegetarian since 1985.
So what was the catalyst for you going from vegetarian to vegan? And, before I was vegan, and I'm coming up on 5 years, and I still call myself a baby vegan, but I didn't really understand the difference between what a vegetarian was, what a plant-based eater was, what a vegan was. So what was the point where you said, I'm a vegan now?
Well, in my eating life, things drop away. Mm-hmm. So in college, beef dropped away, and then chicken dropped away. And then I remember looking down at my plate and there was a scallop on it. It's like, that's not going in. And that was the end of any kind of seafood, fish, anything like that. And that was 1985. And then it was more of a health journey that I was on. And I noticed, and I actually had my health practitioners tell me, dairy really isn't serving you. It really isn't helping things to move through, if you know what I mean. So at that point, and I want to say that was maybe 10 years ago that the dairy went. And then it was more like a noticing. It's like, wow, I haven't had eggs in a long time. So it may be longer than I've been vegan. Mm-hmm. And I remember somebody giving me some eggs and they just sat in my refrigerator. And I just ended up bringing them to work to give them away. So it wasn't, I'd like to say it was a conscious decision.
Right.
It just wasn't.
It just happened.
It was an evolution.
Well, it's interesting because we have a couple of rescue chickens and they do lay eggs and I don't eat the eggs. And I've had people say, well, they're happy chickens and it's okay. And it's like, no, it's not for me. I don't want to consume any animal products. So with your transition into being a vegan, what does that even mean to you? When you say to somebody, I'm a vegan, or they find out that you're not eating meat and dairy, what does that imply?
I don't know that I have a strong identification with it. It's just something that seems to work well for me and my body, and also for my spiritual practice. I notice a lightness and an ability to get quiet more easily. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, it's not something that I talk a lot about. I noticed that in the marketplace, although there were a lot of vegan foods, there weren't a lot of vegan sweets that were also healthy for you. So,
yeah. And that's what I noticed about your company. You've got, I think one's cookie dough, and it's when I used to eat ice cream, cookie dough ice cream was my thing. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, I've got to get the cookie dough block. So
we got to hook you up.
Absolutely. Hook me up and I'll be an ambassador. And we're going to talk about that because I love the fact that you're basically you're rewarding people and thanking people for sharing the message about your company. So with your company, BHU Foods, when did you start that? When did you get the idea? And let's start with that. And then I've got a lot of questions about the business side.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur. So since college, I've always made my own jobs. So when I moved back to California from living in Boston for 33 years, when my daughter graduated from high school, I was looking at the next step, what I would do next. And I'd been in the food business in Boston in the 80s and made really decadent brownies, gooey, ooey gooey, sugar-filled, butter-filled, not the healthy stuff. And what I realized at a certain point is it was like giving a drug addict their drug of choice, just infinite access to that. And around 2008, I realized I had a problem with sugar. And I'd read all sorts of books. I think I'd seen myself as a compulsive overeater, and I hadn't linked my problem to sugar until that point. And at that point, I cut out the sugar, and I realized I completely forgot your question. But so that's, so when I moved back to California, I knew I wanted to start a company to help people who also wanted to cut down on sugar or cut sugar out of their lives.
Right.
Give them products that were no sacrifice. You still get that party in the mouth experience, but without the negative health consequences of eating a bunch of sugar.
Right. I love that party in your mouth. And that's awesome. But, and as you were sharing that, it reminds me of the book, Sugar Blues. I read that. And I definitely am addicted to sugar. And so for me, I have to abstain from, I've been in recovery 39 years. So it's like, I've just got this addictive personality, but there's this book. Well, and that probably why I wanted you on the show. It's like kindred spirits. And there's a book called Salt, Sugar, Fat, where I don't know if you've ever read that book.
No,
Fascinating how the food manufacturers actually have gotten people addicted. And that's why we have such a problem with disease, with obesity, with children. I think it's 35% are now obese. Children, not adults, children. And it's crazy. And, with what you're doing, when did you start your company?
I started Boo in end of 2013. I just want to get back to what you were saying about kids. I'm going to quiz you for a minute.
Okay.
So in 1986, 6% of the adult population had one or more chronic conditions. What do you think it is now?
It was 1 in 6.
It was 6%.
6%. Okay.
1986.
I would say now we're probably looking at 80%.
Wow, that's the highest guess I've ever gotten. It's about 50.
Okay. And,
but it might even be higher. But kids are higher. They're at 54%.
Yeah. So what are the conditions that they're dealing with?
Oh, you name it. Any kind of diabetes, basically, any kind of immune issues.
Right.
You name it, food allergies. It's like when we demo our product, these kids, when the parents wheel up in the shopping cart, the kids are in the shopping cart, they're always asking what's in it. My kid's allergic to this, they're allergic to that. So, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, kids didn't really have sugar, didn't have food allergies, maybe some peanuts.
Right. Not the way that they have it today, but there's so many factors that play into it. And that's what I love about what you're doing, because it really is about a very conscious way of treating people to something delicious and rewarding, if you will. But because it's sad, the further I go into this whole vegan movement and the plant-based eating, and I'm involved with the National Health Association, and they've been around 75 years, and they're all about natural hygiene and plant-based eating. And the more I learn, the more frightened I become for the next generation, the generation of kids, because they don't have a fair shake in life. So, and moving back into when you started your business, it was 2013, did you say?
End of 2013.
Okay. Now, when you first started your business, was it one of those that you immediately saw the vision for your business, or was it something that you started on your kitchen table? How did that start?
Yeah. Well, I've always been interested in food, and, growing up, my grandmother and I used to bake together. So there was always that love. And I was also, I don't know if you remember well, actually, you and I are not that different in age. You might remember Frances Moore Lappé, Diet for a Small Planet.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I was very influenced by that book, and, just how much more acreage it takes to raise animals for food versus, plants for food. So it's just, so I think that was part of the impetus for me to become a vegetarian.
Right.
We've got a lot of mouths to feed. But my motivation for starting my business was really being able to offer people transition foods who wanted to move off of sugar. And, you'd think that people involved in veganism and vegetarianism would also be focused on health. And I think they are, but there was a disconnect for me in what I saw in the supermarket that was available, and what my sense was in terms of the consciousness.
Right.
People who were making those choices around what they were eating.
Well, and it's interesting because you have the companies that really they're greenwashing, and they're supposedly concerned about people's health and, plant-based eating and all that. And you can find a plant-based product in the grocery store that is not vegan. And there is a whole
people saying that they're vegan. And
well, they say, but then you turn it over and you see, oh, it's got egg whites, or it's got milk, or it's got honey, or whatever it may be. And it's so interesting because there is a segment of the vegan population that their greatest concern is animal welfare, but they don't worry about their health. I have a dear friend, Linda Middlesworth, who's almost 80 years old, and she's been 35 years a vegan. And her whole thing is, if you're not a healthy activist, you're not going to be an activist for long. And so she's very into teaching people how to eat healthy as vegans. But with your business, because this is for the Vegan Visibility Show, and I love bringing business practices to the forefront of what did it take for you to have your business for over 10 years now, and what have been the greatest challenges, and where do you see yourself going? So let's start with how you've been able to be in business for 10 years, because I'll tell you, with the pandemic, a lot of businesses went belly up, and you're just going strong. So what's been your secret to success for being in business for 10 years?
I think treating people well, treating everyone well, treat not just your customers well, but your suppliers and the people who work for you, just kind of walking your talk. I mean, we have, at Boo, we have our Boo Bones, our bone deep values, and people before profit has always been one. So it's like, I'm not going to build a successful business on the backs of people who are working and not having quality of life. So that was always something that was important. So I guess it's kind of, and maybe this is appropriate for a show on veganism, if you know the yamas and the niyamas and yoga, that himsa,
okay.
So ahimsa, harmlessness. So you start from a place of wanting to do good. And that's one of the things we always talked about at Boo, that it feels good to do good.
Right.
So employees would really love to hear the stories about, we would get letters from from parents. One mother said, my kids have a mother because you do what you do. I didn't have the courage to start the keto diet without knowing that Boo was out there to support me. And I was going down, kind of a slippery slope with my health. So those kinds of things were really motivating to our people to know that what they were doing with their labor was putting goodness into the world. It was of service to people.
I love that. I love that. And I want to remind people that you're listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. I'm your host, Katleman Gage, and I'm talking with Laura Katleman, who is with, I thought it was BHU, but those are the initials. You'll find it that way, BHU Foods, but it's Boo Foods. And Laura, what have you found to be your greatest challenge in running a business? And, I'm sure that the pandemic impacted you. What have been some of the challenges that you've experienced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, first of all, you mentioned just about the name. Boo is actually a word in Sanskrit. It's, it means earth or of the earth. So all the ingredients are of the earth, no junk, no fillers. That was part of our brand promise from the beginning. And you also mentioned about greenwashing, and there are a lot of companies out there. When I first started my business, and so I would say this has been a challenge. People would say you can't put more than 25 cents worth of ingredients in your bar if you want to have a successful bar company. And that was the opposite way of thinking to the way I think. Mm-hmm. People also said nobody's going to buy an organic bar. They're not going to pay for it. So my perspective is always, first of all, if I'm not willing to eat it, I'm not going to make it. And I'm really picky about what I put in my body. Mm-hmm. And I try and eat organic as much as I can. So educating people about, you kind of get what you pay for.
Right.
Like we use monk fruit rather than sugar alcohols like erythritol. So people think they look at the front of the package without flipping over the back, and they see, 1 gram of sugar, 2 grams of sugar, without realizing how that brand accomplished that. And usually, I think we're one of the only brands that uses only monk fruit, no sugar alcohols, to get to that low sugar place. And monk fruit is, $150 a pound. It's really expensive. It's a medicinal fruit from Southeast Asia. It has antiviral, antibacterial qualities. It's called monk fruit because the monks used to give it to their flock when they were sick or about to get sick. So all of our ingredients are like that. Every ingredient has a purpose, a health purpose for people.
Well, let's talk about that, because you mentioned your spiritual side of things. That I get that you have a very strong spiritual practice, and you're into yoga, and I would assume meditation and all that. Let's talk about the different ingredients and what the medicinal purposes of the different ingredients and the spiritual purposes of the ingredients, because I find that fascinating. I started on a spiritual quest when I was 9 years old, and I just knew that what I was being told in the Lutheran church, there was something not right. And it was like, I don't believe everything you're telling me. And so throughout my life, I've been on this quest, and I find it fascinating to hear how other people have come to their transformation, their unfolding. So tell us a little bit about what the spiritual side of your business actually means.
Yeah. So we took it seriously at Boo to the point where we had mantras playing in the background of our production facility. We had beautiful murals on the wall. We had skylights. We wanted people spend so much of their life working. We wanted it to really be a positive and uplifting experience. And I'm a little bit kind of woo-woo when it comes to this stuff.
Good for you. Good for you. I love it.
I believe in the energetic side of things. So it's when we always believed at Boo, and still do, that it's a sacred trust to make food for people, because they're, it's ingesting it into their cells, into their physiology, but also energetically. And I think you alluded to it in the beginning of the conversation. We were talking about, when you eat animal when you eat animals, you're ingesting that fear and that terror that they felt when they were killed.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily serve, in yoga, it's called tamasic. It doesn't necessarily serve kind of becoming lighter and less dense.
Right.
The process of becoming more pure, aligning with beingness, that the spiritual path really is.
Love that. I absolutely love that, because I've been in business 30 years, and about a year ago, I reconnected with somebody that I've known for a while, and we actually are merging our businesses together, and we base what we're doing on very spiritual principles, and we've actually prayed before we send out contracts. And we realize that we have to be transparent about that and share that, because a lot of times people live their spiritual life in a silo, and they're afraid to let the world know it. And I think we need more people to stand up and just say, no, this is what the truth is. Because when I actually realized I was vegan, I was 6 months into being plant-based, and I would not call myself vegan because all you vegans were crazy. And I thought, I don't want to be a crazy vegan. And now everything is vegan. But I was at the grocery store, and I was walking by the food department, or the meat department, and I was going on to another section of the store, and I literally stopped in my tracks, and I felt all this pain and suffering. And it was such a visceral response to what I was looking at, and I could hear sounds, and it was like, oh my gosh, all this time I thought I was so spiritual, and I was consuming dead energy, and what I've done to the animals. And I had to go through a forgiveness period of like, look how many animals I've consumed. I used to wear leather clothing, the leather furniture, and it was like leather this, leather that. And it's like, how cruel could I have been? But I didn't know. And I think that's something that in this whole movement is being willing to forgive ourselves for not knowing. But once we know, then it's being responsible around that. So with your business, what would you say has been the greatest reward of running the business that you run?
Watching the transformation of the folks who I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had a lot of kind of enrichment, supplemental programs for people who worked for us. I mean, we had acupuncturists, massage therapists, we had everybody who came to work for us did nonviolent communication training.
Wow.
So we called it our Bootopia, that we just were trying to create what was possible in a place of work,
Mm-hmm.
to merge it with spirituality. We had a meditation room. We had people who led yoga. So that for me was really fun to watch people, and we would talk about bringing your whole self to work. We're not going to whitewash anything and pretend and just paste on a smile. So we did Byron Katie trainings. Mm-hmm. So to hear people, and we would come together every day as a group, and we called it setting intentions. So we would speak words together about what our intention was to kind of bring the highest and best of ourselves to each other, to the product, because we want really positive, uplifting energy going into food, because people can feel it. But people would talk about their relationships transforming. I just used this nonviolent communication tool in my relationship with my spouse. I realized that I was using violent language with him or her. And now I presented it in a more factual way and talked about my feelings and what I needed. And just that was really gratifying to be sort of midwife to that.
Right. I love that. And, that is such a great model for the work environment, that to have the meditation room, to have the transparency. And as we went through the whole experience of the pandemic and businesses shutting down, how did that impact your business? And did you have to change locations? What was the transformation there, and what has happened since that time?
Yeah. So that was an interesting time. There've been a lot of, I guess I view Boo as my dharma.
Mhm.
It's
I love this. I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing right now. So thank you.
Oh, good. Well, good. It's just, it's like nothing is separate, right? It's like our whole selves are involved in everything. Um, so, so we were kind of at Boo, we were all about walking our talk. And that meant that I had to get humble too, that people
Mhm.
would say, hey, the way you spoke to me was really harsh and it impacted me. And so I had to, like, on more than one occasion, give public apologies to my employees, for my own humanness, right? So, um, so that was not an answer to your question. You said how the pandemic impacted.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, that was really challenging because people were on all sides of what was happening. So, and plus being in California, I had to be careful to not get shut down too. And I wanted people um, to feel their autonomy and their freedom to make whatever choice felt right to them.
Correct.
So
I
that
get that.
was where I landed on it. It's like, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't feel comfortable wearing a mask, don't wear a
Right,
mask.
right,
And it's like with your vaccination records, that's your own personal business.
right, right.
Even though the state was asking me to keep a record of it, that just didn't feel right to me. So I didn't.
I remember in our state in Oregon, the governor wanted us to report on neighbors if they had more than, I think, 3 or 4 people. And it's like, oh, no, no. My mother was in Belgium during the war and I heard horror stories and I thought, no, I'm not going there. That is not happening. And it was the same thing. I felt that people could make their own decisions. And, for some of the decisions I made, I actually was ostracized from certain groups. And now these people are like, oh, maybe what you believed wasn't so offbeat. But so it's interesting as people go through experiences, and then there's that attempt at dividing people and pitting people against each other. And I think, if anything, and this is what I love about the more I'm learning about being vegan and the kindness and the sentient beings, and just I love the living the Dharma, is that everything is about a lesson we can learn, and it's about a level we can get to be more compassionate in life. And with your business now, how large is your facility, and how big is your staff, and where do you see things going in the future?
Well, we've gone through quite a transformation at Boo. So we don't have a facility anymore.
Okay.
So when our product, our packaging was all keto, it was keto vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I want to say in 2020 and 2021, the bottom dropped out of the keto market.
Right.
We saw that it was coming, attaching yourself to something like that. We knew we were going to have to rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it. We were a bit late to that party. The bottom, the keto business and natural channel just dropped like a rock. There was a real culling that happened. And so we suffered that. Our business is about a third of what it was at that point. So we couldn't sustain being in our big facility anymore. We had 30,000 square feet. And so we had to reduce our staff, so that was really painful.
Right.
That was the most painful part. We tried to do our best to help people get situated elsewhere. I think for the most part, we were successful with that. So it's been a humbling for sure.
Yeah, I can feel the sorrow. I really am picking up that was a very difficult time for you. And in looking to the future, how do you see that will benefit you as you move forward with what you're doing in your business?
Well, certainly anything that's, it's like when I look at my spiritual path, um, shame and humiliation have been the greatest gifts. It's like, there's nothing like those two to, give the old 1-2 punch to the ego, right?
Right.
When we were climbing, and it's truly been a roller coaster, then it's like, oh, I must be so smart. I'm so in tune with what people really want, and all those kinds of stories.
I get that. Life has a way of knocking me on my rear end when I get to that point. It's like, oh, I've got this all figured out. And it's like, went through 9/11, went through 2008, went through the pandemic, because I'm a keynote speaker, and contracts just were canceled left, right, and center. I lost literally overnight, I lost about 80% of my business, and where I had on the books what was coming. Talk about a humbling experience, because at that time, that was a couple of years ago, so I was 67 at the time, and I was like, how could I have been so stupid? And I started thinking it was just me, and I thought, well, that's ego, because everybody's going through this. And so I had to step back, and I had to get really humble too. And you're right. I think those are the times that we can actually be brought to our knees, and we can say, okay, I surrender. I'm willing. I'm teachable, and hopefully we get to that point. So with
about that, I mean, talk about courageous to be a keynote speaker. My goodness, I can't.
I don't know if it's courageous, or I just like to be on a stage. What could I? No, I actually, it's like, it is a gift, and I love it, because I love it when I get out of my own way, and that's kind of a form of channeling for me, because it's kind of like I say, okay, give me the words, and even though I know the direction I'm going to go in, sometimes I'll have something pop out that I just go, wow, where'd that come from? And it's like, obviously that was meant for me to say that. And if I get out of my own way, then I'm going to carry the message, whatever that may be. But
that's extraordinary. That's just like, talk about faith, right? To be able to stand up there, hoping that there are going to be some words to come out of your mouth. That's really courageous.
Well, thank you. And, and I'm looking at what you've done, and I say, that's courageous. And, with what you're doing in your business with the ambassador program, tell us about that.
I'm so excited for, so when the bottom dropped out, and all of a sudden, like, and my business is bootstrap, meaning that I financed it. I didn't have investors. And that was sort of a conscious choice. I didn't want that influence. I wanted my vision to be, to be clear, and not influenced by somebody who maybe had more of, not that there's anything wrong with profit, but had that as more of a core value rather than the people. So when we were riding this wave, and, that the bottom just fell out, and the bottom dropped out, and all of a sudden we're making losses like crazy. We stopped all of our marketing efforts. We stopped our Instacart. We stopped our, Google and Facebook ads, all of that. And so we stopped letting people know about us. So, our ambassador program, there are people out there who really get what we're doing and value what we're doing, and are really, sticky to the brand, and want to let others know about it. It's a way to compensate them for that effort and show our appreciation for that.
I'll tell you, it's a generous compensation program you have, because I've been involved in affiliate marketing in the digital marketing space for quite some time. And so I know different percentages that are given for digital products and for physical products. And yours is very, very generous. And I encourage people to go visit your website, which, by the way, what is your website? If you could give that to our viewers and our listeners.
Sure. It's www.boo Foods, Boston Henry Umbrella, BHU Foods with an S.com.
Excellent. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And how much would you say intuition is playing into the regrowth of your business and the really the rebirth of your business with what's going to be coming next?
Yeah, I'm somebody who relies a lot on intuition. And, so whenever I try and make a decision, kind of, I'll call it from lower mind, that's just cost benefit, a business make a true business decision, it always goes wrong. So, it's like I see intuition as incorporating all of it, including, what's, well, a wonderful wise teacher of mine used to say, the heart feels for the whole. So I see all of us as connected, this just web of consciousness where all of our hearts are connected. So if I'm just making a decision that's right for me, that's coming from my ego, and it tends to just go wrong. So I have to feel into what's right for the whole, which may mean shutting down the business. It may mean, and just making those hard choices. But just if I really truly get quiet and make a decision, well, even making a decision doesn't feel right, because in my experience, decisions come in pre-formed. If I try and make a decision, it's not coming from the right place. It's moving from a place of, what's the next obvious step? I don't get to see out here.
Right.
I get to see what happens today. What's the obvious step for today? So that's kind of how I live. And, everything that happened in the business with kind of this roller coaster ride, roller coaster ride up and roller coaster ride down. And now we're kind of flattening out. It's been such a gift, the roller coaster ride down, in terms of my own growth, my own humbling, yeah.
Well, if there was one thing that you could invite the audience to do, first of all, visit your website. I encourage people to do so, and check out all the different products and send reviews, take videos, put them on Instagram. But what would be one thing that you would really invite people to do that would help your business grow?
Oh, that's so sweet of you to ask that question. I guess, try us, just, we're in Whole Foods, we're in Sprouts, we're Publix, Wegmans, on retail, we're also on Amazon and our website.
Wonderful.
And we're not for everybody, but I think, people are surprised, I think, with how good our products taste after they look at how healthy we are. Because I think there's an assumption, okay, if it's really that healthy, it can't taste good. So
I love it. And I just had a download of something I would encourage people to do is get your product and shoot a video. And then you have some kind of I don't know if contest is the right word, but have people put their videos up and have other people evaluate, what did you really like about that video, and look for all the positive in it. Because I think I saw on your site, somebody was out hiking. Was that you out hiking? I saw something. Maybe it was like I got a vision, but somebody eating your bar out on a hike. It's like I would think that that's a time people would enjoy your bars.
Yeah, I think so too. And I love the idea of having people make a video, and I love the idea of a contest. I'll have to, present that to the team. I think that would be really fun.
Okay, well, I'll be entering the contest. And
thank you.
This has been truly delightful. And in closing, what are your final thoughts for people?
Just, get quiet and connect to your heart, and whatever you're spending your time on, make sure it's something that you love doing, that you enjoy and that you're good at. And I would also say just, we're taught, particularly I think as girls, to be kind on the outside. We're given that politeness training. I certainly was as a young girl, to turn that the other way, to flip it, and to be kind inside too.
I love that. So, Laura, this has been truly delightful. I've been talking with Laura Katleman of Boo Foods. That's BHU. And we will put the link in the show notes. I encourage you to go visit the site. I encourage you to become an ambassador after you've tried the product, because it's always much easier to say how great a product is once you've tried it. So I will definitely be trying it. This is Kathleen Gage with Vegan Visibility. Thank you for tuning in. And I encourage you to subscribe to this channel wherever you may be watching or listening. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Kathleen. So much fun.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.